The sun was setting over the dusty plains of Arizona, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. A group of weary travelers trudged through the desolate landscape, their boots kicking up clouds of fine sand with every step. The air was thick with tension, and the only sounds that broke the silence were the crunching of gravel beneath their feet and the distant cry of a hawk circling high above. It had been 3 days since they left the small town of Red Rock, searching for something or someone that no one believed existed. They were led by Sheriff Jameson, a man in his late 40s with sharp eyes and weathered hands. Beside him walked an old prospector named Ezekiel, who claimed to have seen signs of life in the cave near Lost Canyon. And then there was Dr. Clara Bennett, a young physician from Boston, whose curiosity outweighed her fear of the unknown. "Are you sure about this?" Sheriff Jameson asked Ezekiel as they paused at the edge of a ravine. His voice carried a note of skepticism, but also determination. A boy living in a cave? That sounded more like a ghost story than anything real. Ezekiel adjusted his wide-brimmed hat, squinting against the glare of the fading sunlight. "I ain't one for tall tales, Sheriff," he replied gruffly. "But I saw tracks. Small ones, too small to be a grown man's. And there was firewood stacked neatly outside the mouth of the cave. Somebody's been living there, all right." Clara looked around at the barren expanse surrounding them. The canyon walls loomed dark and jagged in the twilight, their surfaces pockmarked with holes where smaller caves might hide. She shivered despite the warmth of the day, sensing the weight of mystery pressing down on them. As night began to fall, they reached the entrance of the cave Ezekiel had spoken of. It was tucked into the side of a hill, partially obscured by overgrown bushes and fallen rocks. Inside, it smelled faintly of damp earth and wood smoke. The flickering light of their lanterns revealed a makeshift shelter, a pile of blankets draped over sticks, and a few scattered belongings: a tin cup, a rusted knife, and a piece of paper folded carefully and placed on a flat rock. Sheriff Jameson picked up the paper cautiously, unfolding it under the dim glow of the lantern. His brow furrowed as he read the scrawled handwriting. "What does it say?" Clara asked softly, leaning closer. "It's just words," Jameson muttered. "She saved me. That's all. No name, no explanation." Little did they know, those 2 simple sentences would unravel secrets buried deeper than any grave. Inside the cave, they found him huddled in the corner, wrapped tightly in a threadbare blanket. He couldn't have been older than 12, with pale skin and wide, frightened eyes that darted between each of them. His clothes were tattered, and dirt smeared his face and arms, yet there was an eerie calmness about him, as if he expected them. "Easy now," Sheriff Jameson said gently, lowering his lantern so the boy wouldn't be startled by its brightness. "We're not here to hurt you. Can you tell us your name?" The boy didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at them for what felt like an eternity, before finally speaking in a voice barely above a whisper. "They call me Samuel." Clara knelt beside him, offering a kind smile. "Samuel, we've come to help you. Do you remember how you got here?" His gaze dropped to the ground, fingers twisting nervously at the edges of his blanket. "I don't. I mean, I do, but..." He hesitated, glancing toward the back of the cave as though afraid someone or something might hear him. "There was a woman," he whispered, "in a white dress. She saved me." A chill ran down Clara's spine. "A woman?" she echoed. "Who was she?" Samuel shook his head vigorously. "I don't know her name. All I know is that she came when I thought I'd die out there alone. She brought me food, water. She kept me safe. But why are you living in a cave?" Sheriff Jameson pressed, his tone firm but not unkind. "Where's your family?" The boy's lower lip trembled, and tears welled up in his eyes. "I don't have any family," he admitted. "Not anymore. I ran away because they were going to sell me to work in the mines. But then I got lost, and the desert tried to kill me. If it weren't for her..." He trailed off, clutching the blanket tighter around himself. For a moment, none of them spoke, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Over the next few hours, they coaxed more details from Samuel. He described wandering aimlessly through the desert after fleeing his home, surviving on scraps of cactus fruit and muddy water until dehydration nearly took him. Then, he said, the woman appeared out of nowhere, as far as he could tell. She wore a flowing white gown, untouched by dust or wear, and carried a lantern that seemed brighter than any ordinary flame. She never spoke directly to him, only gestured silently as she guided him to the safety of the cave. Ezekiel scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Sounds like a mirage to me," he muttered. "Out here in the heat, people see things that ain't real." Clara frowned. But why would he lie about it? Look at him, he's terrified, not delusional. Sheriff Jameson nodded slowly. "Still, we need answers. We'll take him back to Red Rock. Let folks there decide what to do." Reluctantly, Samuel allowed them to guide him out of the cave and onto a horse. As they rode back toward civilization, the stars overhead twinkled brightly, casting faint reflections off the rocky terrain below. Despite the cool night air, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone, that unseen eyes watched their every move. When they arrived in Red Rock, news of the mysterious boys spread quickly. People gathered around the sheriff's office, murmuring speculations and sharing wild theories. Some suggested Samuel had escaped from a traveling circus. Others believed he was the sole survivor of a stagecoach robbery gone wrong. Few paid attention to his claims of being saved by a woman in a white dress. Dr. Clara Bennett, however, couldn't forget those words. Something about them gnawed at her, stirring memories she hadn't thought of in years. Late one evening, after ensuring Samuel was settled in a spare room at the local inn, she visited the town cemetery. Rows of weathered tombstones stretched before her, illuminated faintly by moonlight. Most bore names she didn't recognize, but one stood out, a marble marker bearing the inscription, "Elizabeth Grayson, loving mother and wife. Taken too soon, ****. Clara traced the letters with trembling fingers. Elizabeth Grayson. The name meant nothing to her. Yet the image of a woman in a white dress lingered in her mind. Could it be possible? Days turned into weeks as Samuel adjusted to life in Red Rock. Though still wary of strangers, he gradually opened up to Clara, trusting her enough to share fragments of his past. One afternoon, while sitting together on the porch of the inn, he mentioned something that made her heart skip a beat. "She told me once," Samuel said quietly, staring at his boots, "that she used to live in a big house near a river. Said she missed the sound of rushing water." Clara froze mid-sip of her tea. "A house near a river?" she repeated. "Do you remember which direction?" Samuel shrugged. "North, maybe? Or west?" "I wasn't paying much attention." Her mind raced. There was only one place north of Red Rock with such a description, the abandoned Grayson Estate, nestled along the banks of the Colorado River. Abandoned decades ago, following a tragedy no one liked to talk about. With renewed determination, Clara convinced Sheriff Jameson to accompany her to the estate. Riding through dense forests and crossing shallow streams, they eventually reached a crumbling mansion perched atop a cliff overlooking the river. Vines crawled up its once grand columns, and broken windows gaped like hollow eyes. Inside, the air was musty, filled with the scent of decay. Dust coated every surface, and cobwebs hung like curtains from the ceiling. Yet amidst the ruin, Clara spotted something unusual, a bundle of clothing hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Among them was a pristine white gown, untouched by time or grime. Until that moment, Clara hadn't fully believed Samuel's story. But now, standing in the shadow of the Grayson estate, holding the gown in trembling hands, she understood the truth was far stranger than fiction. But then, a noise echoed through the halls, a soft, melodic laugh that sent chills down her spine. Turning sharply, she called out, "Who's there?" No answer came, but the sensation of being watched intensified. Somewhere deep within the house, footsteps echoed faintly, growing louder until they stopped directly behind her. Refusing to turn around, Clara gripped the lantern tightly. "If you're real," she whispered, "show yourself." And unbelievably, she did. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman dressed in a flowing white gown, her features hauntingly familiar. Her hair cascaded down her back, framing a face both beautiful and sorrowful. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she regarded Clara with piercing blue eyes. "I've waited so long," the woman murmured, her voice tinged with sadness, "for someone to find him." Clara stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet. You're Elizabeth Grayson," she stammered. But how can this be? You've been dead for years. The woman nodded solemnly. Yes, I died protecting my son. But even in death, I couldn't abandon him. Not after everything we endured. Buried secrets spilled forth as Elizabeth recounted her tragic tale. Years ago, her husband had sold their son to ruthless miners seeking cheap labor. Enraged and heartbroken, she pursued them across the desert, only to lose both herself and her child in the attempt. Since then, her spirit had wandered, searching for redemption and reunion. Now, thanks to Samuel's survival and the intervention of Clara and the others, Elizabeth could finally rest. With a final embrace, she vanished into the night, leaving only the faint echo of laughter behind. As dawn broke over the horizon, Clara realized the true meaning of salvation. Sometimes, the greatest mysteries lie not in the answers we seek, but in the courage to believe. The journey back to Red Rock was silent and heavy with thought. Clara couldn't shake the image of Elizabeth Grayson from her mind, nor the profound sense of peace that had settled over her after the woman's departure. Sheriff Jameson, too, seemed lost in reflection, his usual stern demeanor softened by the weight of what they'd witnessed. Samuel, for his part, rode quietly between them, occasionally glancing back toward the estate as though ensuring it hadn't followed. He didn't speak much during the ride, but when he did, his voice carried a newfound strength, as if the truth of his Savior's identity had given him closure. "We should tell people," Samuel said suddenly, breaking the silence. "About her, about why she helped me." Clara hesitated before answering. "Some won't believe you, Samuel. They might think you're making it up or trying to draw attention to yourself." "But it's true," he protested, his young face flushed with emotion. "She really was there. She saved me." Sheriff Jameson interjected, his tone measured. "Let's not rush into anything, boy. There's a time and place for everything. Right now, you focus on getting stronger, learning to read and write, and building a life for yourself here in Red Rock. When the time is right, we'll let folks know the truth." Samuel nodded reluctantly, though the fire in his eyes remained undiminished. Clara admired his spirit. Even after enduring such hardship, he still clung to hope and justice. Back in Red Rock, news of their return spread quickly. Curious townsfolk gathered outside the sheriff's office, eager for updates about the mysterious boy who had lived in a cave. Some were skeptical, dismissing Samuel's story as fanciful nonsense. Others, however, listened intently, their hearts stirred by tales of bravery and supernatural intervention. Dr. Clara Bennett found herself becoming an unofficial guardian to Samuel, helping him adjust to life in town, while also delving deeper into the history of the Grayson family. She spent hours poring over old newspapers and court records, piecing together fragments of Elizabeth's tragic past. What she uncovered both saddened and angered her. Elizabeth Grayson had been a remarkable woman, a devoted mother and advocate for children's rights in mining communities. Her efforts to expose the exploitation of child labor had earned her many enemies, including powerful businessmen who controlled the mines. When her husband sold their son, she became desperate, attempting to rescue him herself. Tragically, her efforts ended in her death, leaving her son alone in the harsh desert. Clara shared her findings with Sheriff Jameson, who grimaced at the injustice of it all. "If only someone had listened to her back then," he muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "Maybe none of this would have happened." "Maybe," Clara agreed softly. "But now we have a chance to honor her memory, to ensure Samuel grows up knowing the truth about his mother and the sacrifices she made." As weeks turned into months, Samuel flourished under the care of Clara and the community. He attended school regularly, excelling in reading and writing despite starting late. His curiosity about the world around him knew no bounds, and he often peppered Clara with questions about science, history, and even medicine. Yet beneath his cheerful exterior lay a lingering sadness, a reminder of the loss that defined his early years. Clara noticed this one evening as they sat together on the porch of the inn, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "Do you ever miss her?" Clara asked gently, handing him a cup of hot cocoa. Samuel sipped slowly, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. "Every day," he admitted. "But I try to remember the good things. The way she smiled, how she always made sure I wasn't cold or hungry. Even if she wasn't real, well, she felt real to me. Clara placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. She was real, Samuel. In her own way, she was very real. And she loved you more than anything. For a moment, neither spoke, content to simply sit together in companionable silence. The stars began to twinkle overhead, casting a soft glow over the sleeping town. One night, as Clara prepared for bed, she heard a faint sound coming from outside her window. At first, she thought it was the wind rustling through the trees, but upon closer inspection, she realized it was music, soft, haunting melodies drifting across the quiet streets. Intrigued, she stepped onto her porch, peering into the darkness. To her astonishment, she saw a figure standing near the edge of town, playing a violin with delicate precision. The music was beautiful yet tinged with sorrow, evoking memories of Elizabeth Grayson and the sacrifice she had made. Clara approached cautiously, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and trepidation. As she drew nearer, the figure turned to face her, a woman dressed in white, her features illuminated by moonlight. "It's you," Clara whispered, her voice trembling. "You're still here." Elizabeth smiled faintly, lowering her violin. "Not for long," she replied. "My work is done. Samuel is safe, and his future is bright. All that remains is for me to find peace." "But why now?" Clara asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Why show yourself again?" Elizabeth tilted her head, studying Clara with gentle intensity. "Because you believed," she said simply. "When others doubted, you chose to trust. That belief gave me strength, and it will give you courage in the days ahead." Before Clara could respond, Elizabeth began to fade, her form dissolving into shimmering light. The music swelled one last time, filling the air with warmth and hope, before vanishing entirely. Left alone in the quiet night, Clara stared at the spot where Elizabeth had stood, her mind racing with emotions too complex to name. She knew then that some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved, that faith and love could transcend even the boundaries of life and death. Years later, Samuel grew into a fine young man, respected and admired by all who knew him. He became a teacher, dedicated his life to educating others and instilling in them the same sense of wonder and compassion that had guided him through his darkest days. And though he never spoke openly about the woman in the white dress, those who paid close attention could see her influence in everything he did, in his kindness, his resilience, and his unwavering belief in the power of human connection. Little did they know, Elizabeth Grayson's spirit lingered still, watching over her son in the town that had embraced him. Her laughter echoed softly in the wind, a reminder that love endures beyond all understanding. In the end, perhaps that was the greatest mystery of all. Not how or why, but simply that it was enough to believe,